All right, I got my 400C here. I'm just kind of checking things. I just pull them down ever so often and check the piston and everything and see how they're running, or make sure that there's not a great big bunch of buildup in the exhaust port. There's a little dust where I took it off and my hands were dirty, like down in that muffler there. It kind of fell back in the saw, but I'll wipe all that out before I put it back together. But this exhaust port, this piston, is in really, really good shape. Those little lines there you see is oil. It's got a pretty good oil sheen. See, like that cross line right there? That's oil. It'll go away once I bring it back down. See, it's not there anymore. There may be one there where I stopped. But anyway, this piston is in really good shape. And don't get me wrong, it's a little black, but it's not excessive buildup. You're going to have a little bit. And I've ran nothing but Amsoil and Amsoil Sabre and Maxima K2. I've got the oil right over here, what I run at 45 to 40 to 1. And I've got even some of this Bel-Ray's HR1. I haven't run none of it yet. Okay, so, and I buy it like that, by the quart or by the pint or quart, whatever. And that's actually, I think, 2 quarts right there, 64 ounces. But either way, that's the oil I run. And that's what you get when you run a foam filter. And, it's not the cleanest, as you can tell. And the saw's not the cleanest by no means. It really could be used to be blew out. But yeah, I mean, all these saws look like that. Of course, the 500i from Ripsaw I don't have a lot of time on, so I'm not even breaking it down. It should be fine. It was the last time I checked it. Run them hard, I'm guilty sometimes of not letting them warm up as much as I should. And I run them fairly hard, big bucks, long bars, but I do run a sharp chain and I run good oil, and that's what I'm getting at. I don't see any problem of having a higher compression saw, like far as getting it ported like I like to get them ported. Just make sure I ain't getting got any loose crap that can suck back up in there or whatever, just a little bit. It ain't bolts anymore because there's some, for one, Loctite just makes a daggum mess because it gets hot and then it crumbles. And so what I do is I get it in the slot and I always go backwards first. You hear it popping, I get back to that pop and then I go forward. Then you're in the threads right. If you're using an impact, of course, if you're using a hand driver, you can always kind of tell. But I don't never just grab the screw and go to putting it in there. And I barely pull the trigger. That way I can tell if it's starting to if it's off any, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's real easy to cross thread stuff with impacts and whatnot. A lot of people claim that you shouldn't use them, but I say if you kind of know what you're doing, if they go in like that smooth, you're not cross threading anything. So here's what I do. I've got this DeWalt. I've got it on 2. So I go through and tighten them up on 2. Really good. Then I bump it up to 3. You don't want to start out on 3 because you can snap the heads off. I've done it on a 462 once. You got to be careful and make sure you've got it in the right setting, But anyway, I'll just bump it. I see that screw barely turn. It won't be even a quarter of a turn. There it went. It's just barely any. And then I'll heat it up, and I'll come back in or wherever I'm at, or I'll run it a little bit, and then I come back in and I do the same thing, tighten it up to 2 and just bump it. Or I'll leave it on 3 and just barely bump it a little. And then I've never had any problem with them being loose or working loose the whole time I've been cutting. Most of the time I got to put them in 3 to get them back off. Every once in a while you'll have something that's not as tight, like I'll forget to do it or whatever. But okay, so let's, if I can here without messing a big bunch of crap up, let's take the plug off. I don't like taking the plug off and on very much, just due to the fact that I don't want to twist it up, you know. And these are the funky, you know, spark plugs or whatever. And it ain't terribly tight. Not terribly tight. And this is about as far as you can comfortably go with this saw without it being a problem. And as you can see, the M-Tronic and the Auto-Tune has got it that like chocolate brown, tannish color everywhere. So it's getting plenty of fuel. And actually it's getting the perfect amount of fuel if you want to go off of plugs, you know what I'm saying? And the plug's clean. It don't have a lot of carbon buildup and stuff like that. Blow the filter off because I don't like blowing the stuff like back to the filter, like embedding it in the filter. Now don't get me wrong, I'll blow them off, but I take the gun and I blow straight across it. I don't blow it to where it goes in, somewhat, but a lot of times I'll just take my hand and brush it off like that, and then I get the cleaner and I clean it, you know, the foam filter cleaner, and I re-oil them. I'm probably not going to re-oil this filter here, just for the simple fact that it's still got a good thing of oil on it. Right here, there's still all kinds of oil there, sucking in from the filter. And even on the inside of the filter, there is no dirt, debris, or anything like that. Now it's starting to get a little brown looking or discolored looking there. But there's a big thing of oil there too as well. And I may over oil these, but I just soak it, get it drenching, pretty well drenching wet. And then what happens is well, I just got it dirty in my hand, but what I do is I squeeze it out and let the excess run out, and then that just is what it is. Like I say, there's no, all that is just oil. There's one little speck there that I probably got in there when I was taking everything apart. Foam filters do really good. And this is what I'm talking about with the new filters pretty much being a velocity stack. You don't need, on the 500i, you know, they make a velocity stack because it's set up different. It's set up kind of like the 661. The 500i is set up like this. Got quite a bit of restriction, you know, on the sides and everything. I know some people cut this off when they run the foam filters or the Egan or whatever. And it's still similar to a velocity stack. It's not quite as open as a V-stack. But in this, you know, I've took quite a bit of this out of this. You know, I opened it up where it would breathe is what I'm getting at, you know. And I put this piece back on here because it helps. You can take this piece plumb out and just have this part. But I feel like the filter don't want to stay on there as well. But nonetheless, what I'm getting at is, you know, with these newer saws, other than the 661 and 500i, and they're really, really close, I don't think there's much need for a V-stack. Even though I run one on the 500i, you know, if they made one for the 661, I'd get it. But for the 261, the 400, 362, 462, all that kind of stuff, there's no need for a V-stack. Not whatsoever. And honestly, that's where I'm getting at. I don't know exactly how you tune an intake other than a V-stack. And, you know, they're, like I say, other than a V-stack, good. And then, like I say, I know it's on there, it's biting on something and it ain't coming off. So, and that's pretty much, I'd like to know how many hours this saw has on it. I'm not for sure. Like I say, it's got several. All the trees at my neighbor's job I done, I topped all the trees with it and even bucked some with it. And then, of course, I've done most of the hickory and then a lot of testing with it, and done trees when I cut the big beech, fell some trees and bucked them with it, and this, that, one thing and the other. It always it's always done really good. So let's see if this thing will fire back up. So that's what you get. I know I didn't get that warm enough, but you know, there's no need in being scared of a high compression ported saw. There's tons of people that run them, and they've run them for a long while. I'm gonna put the 2-foot bar and chain back on. I've run a 28 and a 2-foot bar chain on it ever since I've had it, pretty much. Even when it was stock with nothing but a bark box and a filter. So, you know, there you go. They're tougher than what some people like to think or like to let on. And I don't quite understand. Now, maybe I'm not the smartest person, but I don't quite understand how that a plug on an auto-tune or M-tronic saw can tell you how your build is running, what you need to do to it, being it tunes to what the saw needs. The M-tronic auto-tune saws, you know, a lot of people don't like them because they'll try to tune around an air leak. And they will if it's small, you know what I'm saying? And they tune around these pipes, they tune around those filters, they tune around everything to give you the right amount of fuel and air mixture. So I don't see how you can look at that and tell whether you need to go more or less like some people are explaining. And I may be completely wrong. I don't know about that. But like I say, I'm not... you know, I've done a little porting on saws here and there and cut the base on them and mess with them and stuff. And I can get them to run better than stock, but I cannot get them to run like this yet. And I'm working my way up to that.
Are you going to vote?
Vote for what?
Republican Party.
The saw tunes to what you need it to tune it to. It don't all of a sudden give it less fuel just because you put a muffler mod on it. Now, a carbureted saw may do that, just a regular carbureted saw that you adjust by hand, because it don't adjust. You put a bark box and and a straight shot on it, or you put a straight shot or a bot bar and a filter on it, and you get more air flowing, typically people claim that you got to fatten them up, and some people claim that you don't have to do anything. That's the whole reason for doing it, to make them run more RPMs or whatever. I've done this saw when it was stock, and that saw when it was stock, I've got shorts of them. And I've done them now that that's been ported, and the plug looks the same no matter what. Run good gas, run a sharp chain, and these saws will last you a long time. Know people that's been running these saws, and they run them every day for a living for 5-6 years. Will they last 30? No, but you know, most of the time, somebody that does it professionally every day, a saw don't last for 30 years anyway. Or it may last for 30 years, but they're going to do general maintenance, piston, cylinder, stuff like that, bearings, you know what I mean? Like, nothing lasts forever. And my thing is, even if this lasted 2 or 3 years and runs as hot as it does, you know, runs as quick as it does, I think the production that it ramps up will pay for the premature failure if it was to happen. That's just me, you know. And apparently a lot of other people think like I do, because they port saws just like this, or similar to it, cut the squish, cut the base. And a lot of people that don't know how to build saws quite as good, like myself, that just know how to run them. I'm more like a race car driver, you know what I'm saying? I just know what runs good. I've ran them in every fashion. Flow work and this and that and like this. And these run better. Simple as that. So anyway, we'll catch y'all later. Appreciate you. Have a good one.